Hello everybody, Ray Garner with Garner Games, here to do our weekly comic review. A couple days late, had a situation come up which kind of kept me here later than I was able to do my video on Tuesday like a normal. But today, it's going to be an amazing review. Amazing Spider-Man #1, the relaunch. Now this book is brought to us by Joe Kelly and Pepe Larraz, I think is how it's pronounced, as our artist. I'm going to start off by complimenting the said artist. The fact that he makes Peter Parker look kind of like the nerdy guy does appeal to me. Because Peter should really never be the hot, cool guy. One of those times in artists' reigns where he has been, one of the most famous being the 70s. But not my favorite take on Peter Parker. Peter Parker is a little bit of a goofball. And this first sequence, Joe writes, definitely shows that. As he's going through job interview after job interview. And none of them go well. Including he has to go to this one interview with a bruise across his face, which is from the Sandman, throwing a manhole cover at him and hit him in the face with it. None of these job interviews really work out for him for the most part. He finally gets to one with Rand, I think it's Industries, if I'm reading it right. It's pretty small print there. And it looks to be the one he finally gets a job with. But he has a big problem. Rhino. Love this double splash page here of the Rhino. Now, Rhino's is such an underused villain, so I'm really glad to see him get a little bit of highlight here. Even though he's not utilized for anything other than forwarding the subplot along. To be fair, that's kind of what Rhino does a lot of times. Including this great sequence of Peter hitting him with a box truck. At the end of the fight, Rhino has a heart attack. And Peter has to basically give CPR to get his heart back beating again and save him. Then we get to Kingsley Tower. And we kind of get a hint at who our main bad guy is going to be. And though there is a guy that stays in the shadows. Hobgoblin. We go to Peter doing some investigating, and then we get to Peter's personal life. He's hanging out with a couple and a kind of pseudo girlfriend, I guess what it is. They're not exclusive, as she says. I guess my problem with this is that Peter Parker already has 5 or 6 love interests throughout his career. So adding yet another one, where, he's the nerdy guy who's once again hooking up with the very attractive girl that's, even with the way the artist is drawing him, obviously she should be out of his league. And that will make his, really 6th girl that is out of his league that he has, got to go out on dates with. And since Peter Parker is really the a guy that everybody normally can relate to. The average person who comes into a comic book store can relate to Peter Parker because he's kind of a socially awkward, nerdy guy like the vast majority of us who read comics are. I'm not saying everybody is, but large chunk, and I'm one of them. So the fact that he has this, super high batting average with hot women is hard to buy. And I can even understand if he had a good batting average with kind of the hot, nerdy girl. But that's really not the type he hooks up with. Gwen Stacy's actually probably the closest to a hot, nerdy girl, and she is not a nerdy girl by any stretch. But I'm getting sidetracked here. The cool end of this is this splash page where Peter is scared of all these things coming out at him in his mind. This is just a collage of his rogues gallery. And that ends our first story. Now, there's multiple stories in this book. And we have this little splash page. It's got our main characters that are involved in this first story arc. I can't remember, do we have a title for the story? I didn't see an actual title for the story. But this is going to be our main writing team going forward, if I'm understanding correctly, and artist team. All in all, to be a pun here, amazing start to this series. I like the depiction of Peter Parker. I like the use of the Rhino. I like the return of some classic villains, including Hobgoblin. I like the concept that he's using a fear gas type situation, I think. This is my theory, of course. Similar to like Scarecrow from Batman, for those people who aren't familiar with Hobgoblin, because Hobgoblin hasn't been a regular recurring villain in quite a little while. So I'm happy to see him return. Shay Markin, the new love interest. Interesting. I'm hoping we get more character background on her. We'll see if she is a female character for Peter Parker that can grow on me to where I will like her. I have gotten a little tired of the rotational door of, Gwen Stacy, MJ, and Felicia, so it will be nice to have a break from that. I would have liked for her to be maybe a little more geeky, I would like to see, maybe she's a cosplayer. Maybe she's a gamer girl. Something that makes more sense for her to be hanging out with Peter Parker. Other than she's an extremely attractive woman that found Peter extremely attractive. So, then we have a backup story, also written by Joe Kelly, art by John Romita Jr., and establishing what's going on with Oscorp. And we have a guy, I'm not familiar with this guy, but he cyborgs out and attacks Norman, and Norman takes him down, literally ripping his bionic arm off and beating him with it for attacking him in his house. And he's basically trying to reestablish the brand of Oscorp. Then at the very end, we have yet another sub-story. This time we're out in Arizona, somewhere in Arizona. And we got a team that's exploring stuff, and one of the mesas comes apart, revealing a villain that is on one of the covers, and I assume he's going to probably be the main villain for the next issue. His character's name is Hellgate. The only thing I don't like about Hellgate is he looks a whole lot like Ares from DC. But Ares is a great character in DC, so I'll be interested to see how Peter Parker handles a demigod of war, because that's kind of what he looks like. So a couple of multiple angles going on. We're getting a little more, again, into Peter's personal life. Aunt May is well done in this book, I thought. So it's a really good take on Spider-Man. And I like the fact that you don't have to know the history. You don't have to know what happened when the 8th death of Spider-Man. This is a clean break. So if you're a Spider-Man fan and you've been a little put off by what's been going on in the previous run of Amazing Spider-Man because there's 60-something issues because it's bi-monthly. My understanding is this one's also going to be bi-monthly. But you don't need to know any of that. You just need to know Peter Parker. You need to know he's Spider-Man. Might help to know some of his rogues gallery. It's not a requirement because they're being introduced regularly. So I highly recommend this book. Check it out. And watch out for that Parker's Luck. See you next week.